July 15, 2005, Charlotte, North Carolina. A quiet morning shattered by a single horrifying call. Behind a small church, a car sits abandoned. Inside a handbag, nothing more. But when an officer peers through the bushes, he freezes. A woman's hand motionless, reaching from the grass. This wasn't just a murder, it was a nightmare hiding in plain sight, right next door. The victim was quickly identified. Kenya Patterson, 31 years old, a teacher, a single mother of 2 little girls, Jivon and Tiana. She was known for her kindness and for never missing work. That morning, when she didn't show up, her colleagues knew something was wrong. The autopsy revealed brutal violence, blunt trauma to the face, signs of struggle, and around her neck, clear marks of strangulation. Kenya had fought back, hard. Her artificial nails were broken, her hands torn. But there was one more horror waiting for investigators. Her daughters were missing. Police raced to find the girls. Were they victims too? Hours later, relief. They were safe with their grandfather in Michigan. He didn't yet know his daughter was gone. Meanwhile, detectives began the hunt for her killer. There were no signs of theft. Her jewelry, her purse, untouched. This wasn't a robbery. It was personal. Their first suspect, her ex-husband, James Patterson. He had a history of violence and drugs. He'd beaten Kenya before, so badly that neighbors had called police more than once. A month earlier, she had filed a complaint against him. But now, James had vanished. Detectives searched his home. Empty. His workplace? He hadn't shown up in days. Even his phone was dead. It looked like a man on the run. But 2 days later, James walked into the station himself, calm, almost detached. When asked where he'd been the night Kenya died, he said, "I was high. I don't remember." Scratches covered his hands. He claimed they were nothing. Still, police took his DNA. Then, he dropped a name. "Ask Johnny," he said. He was seeing her. A new suspect had just entered the story. Johnny worked at the local college print shop. When questioned, he said he'd met Kenya there. Friendly, nothing more. But detectives saw nervousness, contradictions, maybe jealousy, maybe obsession. He too gave a DNA sample. Then investigators waited, and the lab results changed everything. Neither James nor Johnny matched the DNA found on Kenya's body. They were back to zero. When all leads dried up, detectives turned to the offender registry. There were more than 200 known offenders in Charlotte that year. They started close to Kenya's home, and luck or fate pointed them to one name, Derek Harris. He had served time for RP and even murder. But the strangest part? Derek lived right next door to Kenya Patterson, her neighbor, door to door, wall to wall, and his mother, Thelma Harris, was the same kind, friendly neighbor who had welcomed police when they first canvassed the area, pretending to know nothing. Detectives compared Derek's DNA, already on file, to the killer's. Days later, the result arrived. A perfect match. He had RTED in the strangled Kenya, then driven her car behind a church and left her body in the grass. And all this while living meters away from her children. When police confronted him, Derek stayed silent. No confession, no remorse. But the evidence was irrefutable. He was sentenced to 64 years in prison. Sometimes evil doesn't come from the shadows. It comes from the apartment next door, from the neighbor who smiles, waves, and asks how your day was. Kenya Patterson's story is a reminder. Even in places of safety, a home, a church, a neighborhood, darkness can wait just beyond the wall. I'm Plain Sight, and this was The Neighbor Next Door. Stay safe and stay alert.